Welcome to the Digital Rapport podcast. I'm Jatinder Palha, and on today's episode, I'm going to be sharing something very interesting with you. About 2 years ago, I did a podcast where I manually did a interview with a bot, right? So I went into I think Jasper at the time, so it was a script writing editor, and I basically wrote a whole bunch of questions to ask AI. I then took the answers and put them into a software. So the answers would come back to me through an AI voice, right? Then what I did was basically ask the questions in my own voice and recorded them. So on a timeline, on some audio software, I basically put my voice asking the question, and then I chopped up the AI responses, audio, and put that in and literally put that together to create a Q&A type of podcast. So a lot of work, a lot of manual work, but it was good. It was fun just to try testing it. And that was done about 2 years ago on the Digital Rapport podcast. Now, at the time of this recording, I've got something interesting to show you. We've got a software, which is basically Digital Rapport AI. So imagine an AI that looks for trending topics. You can shape it, you can change it, you can talk about certain topics or source certain topics or even input certain topics. Let the AI know what you're trying to do. And then the AI itself will basically do a Q&A session with you. So it will ask you the questions and you answer it. It records your answers. Once you've kind of done the interview, it will basically create that into an article. So what I thought would be good would be actually to just go through that. So now the tide has turned. I've got the AI asking me questions. I'll be answering it. And then we'll see how it's basically put that into some sort of article, which we can then post out to the different platforms, right? So let's see how that goes. I've just gone into the software. I've put in a whole bunch of parameters of what I'm actually interested in doing. I've given it a topic and everything. And right at the bottom, it's basically asking me to approve and continue. And it's asking me what type of interview you want. That's a conversational, right? So I'm just going to approve and continue with this. And this is your article strategy is ready. Identifying your central argument. Okay. So it's just running a little process at the moment. So this particular topic is why emotional intelligence builds systems AI cannot touch. Okay. So then it gives you a bit of an angle. It's got some strategic pillars and whatnot. It's got the kind of, all right, what do you want tone kind of thing. Saying, okay, that looks good to me. So I'm just going to approve and continue. It's going to start the conversation. So let's see how this goes. Hopefully you'll be able to hear the voice on this.
Hi there, welcome back. Glad we could connect again for this interview. I'm Jatinder Palha, a content strategist focusing on thought leadership about emotional intelligence and its unique role in our AI-driven future. I'd like to explore your expert insights on why emotional intelligence remains the one skill that AI cannot replicate. Could you start by sharing your perspective on what makes emotional intelligence so distinctly human?
I had studied emotional intelligence when I was at university, and if I can recall, it was put together by a chap called Daniel Goleman, and I think he defined it as the ability to monitor your own and other people's feelings and emotions, and then being able to use those feelings and emotions to pursue and attain goals.
Okay, Daniel Goleman's definition, monitoring your own and others' emotions to achieve goals. That's a great foundation to start with. Building on Goleman's work, how would you describe the connection between emotional intelligence and the way humans build relationships or systems that AI simply cannot replicate? I'm particularly interested in whether you see EQ as merely an interpersonal skill or something more fundamental to how we operate and succeed.
That's a deep question because it looks like AI is becoming very good at what it does. And as a result, it seems like it can actually mimic emotional intelligence to some degree. So it's interesting that you asked that question because at the moment, emotional intelligence, one thing I found out about emotional intelligence was that it's very situational driven. So if you're in a situation, a scenario, that's where emotional intelligence kicks in because there's so many factors in the human mind that can, and the environment that can affect the way you respond to a situation or scenario. It could be based on your mood or anything else that's happened before a particular event. When you're in the moment and something is happening, that's where you would respond to it. And depending on how a human yourself can regulate your thoughts and emotions, that's the way you would respond back to it.
That's a really insightful point about emotional intelligence being deeply situational. You've touched on something crucial: the contextual nature of EQ and how our responses are shaped by our mood, past experiences, and present environment. This dynamic in-the-moment regulation seems to be where AI hits a wall. While AI can analyze patterns and even mimic emotional responses based on data, it lacks that lived experience that informs human judgment. What aspects of emotional intelligence do you think will remain most resistant to AI replication, even as the technology advances? When I think about what remains resistant to AI replication, I'm wondering about specific components of emotional intelligence that you believe will be hardest for AI to truly master. For instance, do you think genuine empathy, actually feeling what another person feels, will remain uniquely human? Or perhaps the intuitive ability to read subtle, unspoken cues in a room? I'm curious which aspects you see as the most difficult frontier for AI to cross, even with increasingly sophisticated algorithms and larger datasets.
So you want to know which aspects of emotional intelligence AI won't be able to mimic, yeah? What I find fascinating is that the human brain, far as I understand, is split up into several hemispheres, but the main being a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere. And the left hemisphere deals with reason and logic, the right side deals with emotion and art, things like that. So as a human being, we are basically operating from both of those elements, as far as I can understand. When we do something, we're either using logic and reason, or we can go into our creative side, use emotion and art to tap into things. Now, as a human being, as we're present in a situation, a scenario with other people, it means that that's what's playing out. With AI, AI is basically ones and zeros. It's based on data sets, it's pattern recognition. Even though emotions and human behavior can exhibit habits and patterns, which the AI can mimic, but that's all it is mimicking. So with enough data, you could probably tell the AI and it could probably get trained on how to deal with certain situations, a scenario, but that's manufactured, right? It's synthetic in the sense that it's not real time as a human goes deeper into those different parts of the brain.
Wow, that's a really fascinating way to frame it. The left brain and right brain hemispheres playing out in our own emotional responses. The idea that AI is working with data sets and patterns while humans are accessing something more integrated and real time is compelling. You're right that AI can mimic patterns, but lacks that authentic integration between logical reasoning and emotional processing that happens in the human brain. Recent research actually supports your perspective. Even as AI advances, experts continue to emphasize that distinctly human skills, like emotional intelligence, remain irreplaceable. The synthesis between analytical thinking and emotional responsiveness that happens in real-time human interaction creates something AI can only approximate but not truly replicate. What do you think makes emotional intelligence so powerful in professional context specifically?
A person has to have what they call the emotional awareness. They got to be aware of their own thoughts and emotions, and they'll be able to understand those in others. So when you're in a situation, in a work environment, for example, there's different things playing out. Again, with the human being, there could be lots of things that we're just not aware of. What could be going on with that particular person, and why and how they're acting and behaving can influence what they're doing in the workplace. So they might have something going on at home, for example, right? And we don't know. And they play that out in the workplace, and they might react in an angry way, or cope with the situation, and to the fellow human they may think, what on earth is going on here, right? So AI can't do that at the moment. It doesn't understand that context. But whether we start to then see an advanced version of AI where it's monitoring the human face, is looking for micro expressions, and then taking all that information on board and saying, okay, this seems to be anger, this seems to be resentment, this seems to be something else, then it can maybe understand the patterns and act and behave in a way that can help shape the situation and scenario. it could probably get to a stage where it's able to do that, but at the moment, it can't do that.
That's a really powerful point about the emotional win, that awareness of our own internal state and how it might be influencing others. You've highlighted something crucial about context that AI currently struggles with. Understanding the full human experience that's happening outside the workplace yet affecting behavior within. Those micro expressions, subtle emotional cues, and the complex backstories we all bring to interactions are incredibly nuanced. While AI might eventually read facial expressions and identify patterns, the question remains whether it can truly understand the why behind human behavior. There's a difference between recognizing anger and comprehending the complex web of experiences that created it. Do you think there's an ethical dimension to emotional intelligence that AI might always struggle with? The moral weight of emotional decisions rather than just recognizing emotions? Do you think AI will ever truly understand the moral and ethical aspects of emotions? For example, knowing when compassion should override efficiency, or recognizing when someone needs empathy more than solutions. These are judgment calls humans make based on emotional intelligence that seem to require more than pattern recognition.
That's fascinating. I mean, I'm talking to you as an AI, right? So you're asking if the AI can be basically ethical in its approach. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You've hit on something important there. I'm interacting with you based on my training, and the questions are designed to explore these very topics we're discussing. From my perspective, I'm trying to understand if you believe AI can develop true ethical judgment based on emotional understanding, not just programmed ethical guidelines.
Here's the thing. I was arguing with an AI once, right? And I was asking it, can you understand what your parameters are, what you believe to be true or not true, and things like that? And it was basically saying that it only knows its programming. It can only do what it's been told to do. So if that's the case, that would mean that at the moment, the AI is only going to fit within certain parameters on how it responds to something. So even though it might recognize a human behavior and a pattern, it will respond in a way that it's actually been trained or coded or taught to do in that scenario, right? Whereas the human being is way more complex than that. There's so much more depth to it because in any kind of situation, there's body language, there's tone, there's facial expressions. Is this the right thing for the human being? Now, at the moment, the human is probably a better judge of that kind of information based on one's experience, especially if they know or they've been through that pathway and understand what's going on with that person, for example, right? Whereas, the AI is only going to do what the data set allows it to do. So unless the AI can get to a stage where it can go beyond its data set and coding and go into a space which is more similar to a human, I don't think that's going to be possible. I think it's just going to be, if it's been coded to do a particular thing, that's what it's going to try to do.
That's a really sharp observation about the difference between following programmed instructions and true understanding. You've articulated something fundamental about current AI limitations. We operate within our training parameters, while humans can draw from lived experience, intuition, and moral reasoning that transcends data patterns. The multidimensional nature of human interaction with body language, tone, facial expressions, and context creates a complexity that's difficult to replicate algorithmically. Even when AI recognizes patterns, there's still that gap between recognition and genuine understanding. What you're describing is the difference between simulation and authentic experience. AI can simulate emotional responses, but doesn't actually experience emotions that inform ethical judgments. This seems to be where emotional intelligence creates a competitive advantage that can't be easily replicated by technology. Would you say this authenticity gap is what makes human emotional intelligence particularly valuable in leadership positions?
Absolutely. I mean, the whole thing about emotional intelligence is it's a powerful understanding. I studied it a long time ago when I was at university. I was creating a psychometric test based on emotional intelligence to see if one could be made to, test someone's behavior in the workspace. And what with emotional intelligence, the actual software at the time could only give you something valid if you were being honest, if you're being truthful in your kind of approach to how you're answering the questions. But with the advancement of AI, it means that the AI is very clever and adaptive, right? So at some stage, it's going to become very, very clever. But at the moment, in terms of the human being's experience, the situation, the way they're able to adapt in a group environment, the gut feeling, the intuition that comes through, that's an authentic human experience. AI, it won't be authentic in that sense. It would be algorithms and codes and what it's told to do at the base of its core, of its coding, sorry. Whereas the emotional, when we were talking earlier on about the two hemispheres of the brain, unless the AI machine is developed to have that kind of logic and reason and emotion and art, then it might be able to mimic humans a bit more better. But if it doesn't do that side of it, it's just going to work on algorithms and coding. So at the end of the day, if, for example, the AI is coded to say your job at the end of the day is to make sure that in the workspace, humans are being efficient, you're looking after them, kind of happy in that space, that's all it's going to do, right? Because that's its base code. And it's not going to know anything wiser than that. It's always going to try to come back to those parameters. And no matter how much you argue with it, how much you say otherwise, because of its limited codedness, limited command, its prompt, if you want to say, it's just going to get to a point where it just says the same old thing without actually adapting and being authentic, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. You've captured something really important there. The difference between programmed responses and authentic adaptation based on lived experience, intuition, and that gut feeling you mentioned. Your point about creating psychometric tests highlights this limitation perfectly. AI can only work with the honesty of the inputs it receives, while humans can often sense when someone isn't being forthright. What's particularly interesting is your observation about AI's fundamental constraint. It will always return to its base parameters and objectives. No matter how sophisticated the algorithm becomes, there's still that underlying directive that limits true adaptability. The human capacity to completely shift perspective based on intuition, to operate for both logical and emotional hemispheres simultaneously, creates a form of intelligence that feels fundamentally different from computational processing. This seems especially crucial in leadership contexts, where navigating complex human dynamics requires that authentic understanding and adaptation that goes beyond efficiency metrics. Would you say emotional intelligence becomes even more valuable as AI continues to advance in other areas?
Valuable to who?
That's a really insightful question. Valuable to who? It highlights the potential for AI and human emotional intelligence skills to complement each other in different ways. I think we need to consider multiple stakeholders. For organizations, emotional intelligence becomes more valuable as they seek to balance AI efficiency with human connection. For individuals, developing EQ skills could become a key differentiator in the job market as technical tasks are increasingly automated. And for society as a whole, emotional intelligence might be essential for maintaining our humanity and social cohesion as technology becomes more pervasive. Which of these perspectives interest you most?
I'm a Star Trek fan, right? So I like the idea of humans and the computer working together. But fundamentally, at the end of the day, it's the starship commander, the captain of the ship, who is basically taking the final decision. So even though the AI might turn around and say, well, based on calculation, this might not be possible, the gut instinct of those, what we've seen in the movies and things like that, the gut instinct of those leaders is then something that follows through and works out in the end. And then it gives the AI something to think about, like, I didn't consider that one, right? And then potentially updates itself. So I think that element of what's possible with the kind of intuition side of thing, or higher power, or the connectedness to something greater than ourselves, it's an interesting one, because it still comes down to that thing that unless the AI can work in the same way as a human does, will it actually ever become sentient in that kind of sense. Like, what does that even mean, right? But for the human being, we can learn, we can adapt, we can change, we can, work around things in a different way currently. But at some stage, the code, you might have so much data that the AI is able to be much better.
That's a fascinating parallel you've drawn with Star Trek. The captain making that final call based on intuition, even with AI providing complex data. This balance between computational intelligence and human judgment really captures what makes emotional intelligence so valuable. You've touched on something profound about our connection to something greater, that intuitive understanding that sometimes defies logical explanation yet proves correct. While AI might eventually have enough data to approximate human-like responses, that question of consciousness or true sentience remains elusive. The human capacity to learn, adapt, and work around problems in creative ways stems from our emotional intelligence and lived experience. The Star Trek metaphor works perfectly because it shows how even in a highly advanced technological future, there remains this irreplaceable human element that guides moral choices and creative problem solving. In that sense, perhaps emotional intelligence becomes most valuable when it works in partnership with AI rather than in competition with it. It's not about which is better, but how they complement each other. The AI's computational power paired with human intuition, ethical judgment, and emotional understanding.
Yeah, exactly. And, at the end of the day, why would humans want to give up that whole process? Like, why would they want to delegate everything out to the AI? Because then, in a way, that would make the human a bit redundant, right? I don't think it's in our kind of long view nature to be like that. I think we rather be in a form of digital rapport with, like man and machine working together side by side for the collective good of humanity, as well as what else may come out of this through the AI. So I think the collaborative approach is always going to be best.
That's a really insightful perspective, the idea that humans might choose to maintain their role in partnership with AI rather than being fully delegated. I love that phrase you used, digital rapport. It perfectly captures that collaborative relationship where human and machine complement each other's strengths. You're absolutely right that there's something fundamentally human about wanting to remain relevant and engaged, rather than delegating everything away. This collaborative approach preserves our sense of purpose while leveraging technological capabilities. It's not just about efficiency, but about creating something better than either could achieve alone. The collective good you mentioned seems to be the sweet spot, where emotional intelligence and artificial intelligence enhance each other rather than competing. This idea of partnership rather than replacement gives us a much more optimistic framework for thinking about the future of work and human potential. Last few questions. Do you think organizations need to actively cultivate emotional intelligence as a core competency alongside technical skills as AI continues to advance?
Absolutely, 100%. See, the thing is, as we've been using technology more and more, just social media, you're on your phone, you're doom scrolling, it has had a negative effect on human well-being. You do get humans that are influenced by technology, where mental health can become an issue and a concern, with lots of things going on around the world, in the household and all that kind of stuff. So there's, the tech can play a bad side of it. If you're able to then have that human element, that human touch, the empathy, the emotional intelligence, you're able to then work with those individuals and help them out of a situation, a scenario that may have been where the machine could have been a contributing factor to it.
That's a really crucial point you're making about the potential downsides of technology, how it can amplify negative mental health effects and contribute to social isolation. You've identified something important, that sometimes the very technology we create requires human emotional intelligence to mitigate its negative effects. There's an irony there. We need EQ to help people navigate the challenges created by advancing AI and technology. That human touch, empathy, and emotional awareness becomes not just complementary, but potentially healing in a technology-saturated world. Organizations that recognize this duality are likely to create healthier, more productive environments where technology serves human needs rather than the reverse. It sounds like you see emotional intelligence as both a counterbalance to technology's potential harms and as an essential partner to its benefits. Thank you so much for sharing your insights today. You've offered a really nuanced perspective on the relationship between emotional intelligence and AI. Is there anything else you'd like to add about this topic before we wrap up?
No, I think we're good. I was just waiting when we were going to end it, but thank you for that.
You're very welcome. It was genuinely fascinating exploring these ideas with you today. Your insights on emotional intelligence as both a uniquely human capability and a necessary complement to AI have given me valuable perspective for this article. I appreciate your time and thoughtful reflections on how these elements might work together in the future. Please click complete interview whenever you're ready, and thank you again for this engaging conversation.
So going to click that. Wow, wow, wow. Like, how crazy is that? The AI is trained to be an interviewer and it's trying to pull this information out of me. And as you just seen, it's literally just created, it's just got the Q&A. You can see it's put its questions and answers down on the screen. I can go and actually edit my responses if I wanted to, which is kind of crazy. And now I think that's all right. I'm just going to go craft article and just let the AI do its bit. So now what does this mean? This means that the AI can work with you to pull out thought leadership content from yourself, right? It's your content, your voice, your tone, your thoughts on something. And it's basically going to collect that, put it together and make an article. So it's unique to yourself. This is so different. This is based on your input. You've seen how I just had this conversation with this AI. It's adapting to the responses I'm giving. It's then putting that into play. And now it's basically going through it's analyzing that and it's going to basically put it into an article format. So anyone who's listening to the podcast, basically what's happening now, the AI is taking all of that information and it's processing it and it's going to convert it and making it to an article, which you can't see at the moment because you're listening. But anyone who's listening and watching this on YouTube can see what's actually going on. It's actually trying to find references to what you're saying as well. It's probably going to try to say, here's where somebody else is talking about it. And you can see it's basically written up the article. So just going to read a little bit of this. It says, why emotional intelligence builds systems AI cannot touch. And it starts off by saying, I've spent years studying Daniel Goleman's work on emotional intelligence. His definition stuck with me. The ability to monitor your own and other people's feelings and emotions, then to use those insights to pursue and attain goals. Wow, this is what we spoke about earlier on, right? So now it's basically taken all of that information I had given it and it's putting it into an article format. And as I'm just like scanning through this and having a conversation with you, I'm kind of mesmerized. I was thrown off a bit because the AI was asking questions on the spot and I'm like listening to it because it was so insightful, but also then thinking, oh my goodness, like this is really cool. Like what shall I say and how will it respond, right? So it's basically written an article. Oh, there we go. Saying research from Harvard Business School confirms this. Like it's pulling out references as well, which you can probably click on to get through. I'm just surprised. Look at this. It's written a whole article for me based on my knowledge and information. Oh, there you go. It even mentions digital rapport there. The partnership model that actually works. How cool. It's taken that bit there. I'm a Star Trek fan. I love the idea of humans and computers working together. This is pretty crazy, right? So earlier on when you were listening, when the interview started, it called itself Jitinder Palha. It's basically like a twin. It's learning about the way I speak and do things. So it's like a digital twin. So hence why it's called itself Jitinder Palha as well. So yeah, this is pretty interesting, right? That's my article created. So now what I can do is basically get to so if there was anything I need to improve in the article, I could chat with it and say, add this bit, do this, change that. It will rewrite the article. Once you're given it that information, you can leave some comments, things like that. And then I think that's pretty much done. So there, just going to do save as a draft. It's even created an image for me. AI recognizes patterns, humans, that kind of thing. And now if I go to publish article, I can basically push this out to the different places that I've got connected with the account. I need to still connect on my account. Oh, look at that. Transformation gate. Oh, one. That's quite clever. Now when you're ready to publish the article, you just click on that and you can select the different places you want your article to go. I say external blog, and my website is on WordPress. Well, it's using a WordPress website, so it's going to use that in the background. Okay, so that's basically gone to my website. It's looked at all the different tags and categories I have. Obviously, this is artificial intelligence. It's also Digital Rapport podcast, and then publish the article. So now it's asking me, do you want to share this on your social profiles? I said, yep, share on social media. So I'm just going to head over to articles, and you can see that it's published the actual article. I'm going to head over to my website, and when I go to the blog, you will see that it's put the article there, why emotional intelligence builds systems AI cannot touch. And if I click through to that, you will open up the post, 6th February, Jatinder Palahar. Get rid of that. And then look at that. It's already posted it to my website. How crazy is that, right? So this is now on the interwebs, all from my interview. And 2 years ago, I was manually doing this kind of process. I only did one for the sake of it, just to test it out. And now you can see it basically can interview me and do the whole thing itself. How mad is that? There you go, folks. This is how AI has advanced so much that you can give it its context and information, and it will basically make the content for you. And it can repurpose that content to be pushed out on the different social media platforms as well. So, that took us, how long that took us for this podcast. You can imagine, just press click of the button, creates an article, push it out there, pop, done. It's out on your different platforms. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you got any questions, let me know. I'm still mesmerized from this, and I'm still thinking of what just happened, right? So on that note, signing out, and see you on the next one. Thank you very much.